but ending the season with a win, 9-4 looks a whole hell of a lot better than 8-5. Winning a bowl game again, Brian Kelly obviously puts a lot of emphasis on the bowl games, which I appreciate, right? That is, you've earned the right to play in a bowl game. You want to end the season off strong. You had a lot of guys decide to play that are not going to be here next year. Defense kind of got gashed a little bit. They had some moments, but they got gashed a good amount for the game. Offense looked great. Nussmeier looked great, minus the one throw. He got fooled by the defensive end dropping in coverage. That was bad on his part. But other than that, he was pretty flawless. He was making unbelievable throws, dropping arm angle down low, up top, getting up over top of guys. Amazing to see. Amazing to see what a healthy Chris Hilton does for LSU.
Wow.
I mean, that guy
loves a bowl game.
Listen, unbelievable sliding catch.
Didn't jump.
Didn't jump, stay on the ground. But deep ball that way, unbelievable sliding catch. Bad, not Nuss's greatest throw. Underthrew him just a touch. But he looked really good. Obviously, Trey'Dez Green looked like a monster. Looks like he's kind of figuring out the offensive side of it. Blocking, obviously, I didn't lock in on him at the end of the line of scrimmage and what he was doing on the blocking side. But
good enough.
Running backs ran the ball hard. Obviously, Baylor isn't the same defense that LSU has faced throughout the course of the year as far as pass rushing goes, but the offensive line, for the most part, held up. I think some of those young guys got some valuable experience, and I thought it was a really well-played game, especially offensively. And I think they probably left some points on the board, or at least the margin of victory should have been larger. What were y'all thoughts on the game? What'd y'all like, what y'all didn't like?
We can start off with the offensive side of the ball. I think there's a lot to like, a lot to look forward to, and a lot of optimism that will go into the offensive side of the ball next year when they kick it off for the 2025 season. Nuss looked great. Nuss played great, obviously, besides the one play, but who the hell cares about that? At the end of the day, we wanted to kind of see him go out there and do his thing and kind of let it all hang out, and he did that at a very high clip, so that was impressive to see. He will be adding more pieces offensively next year, so it'll be fun to see where this thing can go for them offensively. I think when you look at the other side of the ball, it was unfortunate to see Witt go down with the injury that he went down with. Hopefully he's able to recover correctly and be ready to go for the beginning of the season next year. But you kind of expected some of this to kind of happen on the defensive end. You had some young guys, you're going to insert some guys who are not used to playing. That goes for some communication issues, kind of makes it a little tough. So I'm not surprised you saw that, but I still felt like the team came out and handled a team who was, if I remember correctly, wasn't Baylor favorite to win that ball game? Handled a team who was playing really well at the end of the year, and you won that game convincingly because of how good you were offensively and how efficient you were offensively, and you were able to kind of get some key stops and do some key things defensively as well.
They look good. Whit Weeks, the injury is a dislocated ankle. I guess that's officially out.
I think it was officially out whenever they popped it back in.
Well, right, but
which
was wild at the timing of the camera. Usually, they don't show those type of gruesome injuries. Where I was watching the game with Andrew, my brother-in-law, and some friends, and
Andrew has some takes,
and we're watching it, and I'm looking at it, and Andrew goes, "Oh boy, I don't think his ankle's supposed to be going that way." And then I really kind of zoomed back into it. I'm like, "Oh yeah, his ankle is going opposite direction of where it's supposed to be." And then they pan to the booth, and the booth pans back, and the camera zooms in literally at the exact time that they're setting the ankle and putting the ankle back in socket. And I'm like, damn. You can see it pop, and you can see Witt's reaction go, oh, that feels better. That feels better. They put him in the air cast. Obviously, he goes out. Brian Kelly came out, I think, today and says that he will be ready to go by spring ball. He believes.
He would play today.
Yeah. But I think on the other side of Witt, I think it shows you the type of leadership he's got, what happened with the team, and the team all going out there all going talk to him. I think that is you love to see that, and to me that bodes well next year for our defense, and for just the team in general because of that type of leadership with him and Nuss, and you have captains on both sides of the football, and everybody seems like they kind of have the same goals in mind, which always is a big thing going forward. So defense played well. Look, Devon Keys played great, pick 6. He looked good. Yeah. It seems like he's going to be the next guy in the middle with Witt. Tylen Singleton, did y'all watch him?
Motor.
Run down on the kickoff return? That's a linebacker.
That's 318 speed, brother.
That's a linebacker, dude. He ran all the way down. He's the one who
you got that too, Lloyd?
Yep.
He's the one who did high fives with Xavier Thomas to score, but he caught up to him. Now, obviously, Xavier Thomas probably throttled down a touch.
Yeah, we were going in different gears.
He's excited, isn't he? He's exciting when he gets the ball and kickoff and punt returns.
That way from the game was like all. I don't think a lot of people believed in LSU and like what to expect or if they won. Or like it was painted with a very broad brush of this game doesn't matter, and which is kind of in my mind saying it doesn't matter if LSU loses. It's not that big a deal. Look at what they did in the portal. Look forward to next year.
But it matters to the players, dude.
It clearly matters to the players, and Brian Kelly is very good about these bowl games, which you could say is a big game or not. But in my mind, bowl game's a big game. So he's a good big game coach for LSU so far. And the other thing is you forget that SEC versus the Big 12, if they're both trying, that was the bigger difference. Like the SEC speed. What do you have linebackers running with kick returners?
Yeah.
And there's not a Baylor player in the picture. It's like,
yeah.
Baylor found out pretty quick, like, oh, my God, this is a little bit
now,
different.
listen, defense, like I said, we talked about the young guys. Defense got gashed. I think their quarterback threw for like 440 yards.
Fine.
Whatever. They were behind. They had to go and do the things they needed to do. But you had
DJ Pickett waiting.
And you have a lot of guys. You had a lot of guys make some plays. Obviously, Devon Keys made some plays. You had some young guys get valuable experience in the back end of the secondary. Look, kudos to Baylor, too. They made a lot of contested catches. You know, it wasn't – now there was a lot of soft coverage off. They say we don't want to get beat over the top. And you saw them catch a lot of balls underneath. But then you saw them catch a lot of contested passes, and that's kudos to them. It wasn't bad coverage. It was just good plays by them on some of those balls. But offensively, man, Aaron Anderson looked good. Obviously, the fumble, the drop in the end zone. You could tell he kind of tried to keep his feet in, kind of lost control, like lost concentration on the ball. Who was calling the game?
I didn't listen to it because I was doing the stream.
Because the guy who was calling the game said that, man, it looks like he put too much air underneath that. If you just – I was like, hey, brother, there's a linebacker in front of him, buddy.
But then they cut to the second camera. It's like that's a perfect throw.
That was a perfect throw. And the ball was not too high. It was – I mean, if you ask Aaron Anderson, he said, I need to catch that.
Yeah, it was the feet. What you saw on the wild Nuss throw where he spun out the pocket and just there was nobody in the picture whenever he let that ball go, and Aaron Anderson gets to like the toe tap on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, like when Nuss threw it, I was like, oh no. That was one of those that Aaron Anderson double toe tap, Tony Toes, gets in there, and he tried to do it again on the touchdown catch. I can't fault him for that. That's trying to make a perfect play. And
then the ball over the middle, the big long play, and then he fumbled. I mean, it was an unfortunate.
The
guy came
rate
from
was
the
very
opposite
high.
end. Huh?
The usage rate was very high.
No doubt. They look good. Offensively, they look good. Trey'Dez Green obviously looks like a monster. Caden Durham.
Okay.
He had, I think, almost 5 yards of carry. Josh Williams, last game at LSU, looked great. All in all, I think it was very encouraging to see those guys because you have a lot of help coming in with the guys that they played there. Jay, what was your take on that?
Yeah, the way they – that's what the way they finished the game was great. There's so many guys that are coming in, and to me it's like one of those things where it's like, all right, well, we saw what we saw offensively, and obviously a lot of those guys will be back next year, and it's like, but there's also a nice influx of guys coming into that picture. So it's crazy. Like, how is that going to fit? I don't really expect it to like take a step back, but you also didn't go get all those guys for no reason. So like, how is it going to fit? What are the pieces going to look like? How are you going to play the puzzle part of it? You do have a ton of options, but there's only one football. Right? The other side of it for me is, we talked about it, and I just mentioned it, and I thought like this goes through my mind, but it's like you got two heartbeats, right, that are on your defense that both went through probably the toughest athletic moments of their lives, right? Where you got Weeks going through the injury that he's gone through, and you got Harrell, who's going to be rehabbing and going to be fully back from the injury that he's going through. Those are going to be your two leaders on defense. That's a damn good place to start.
No doubt.
And I think that bodes well for that team. It bodes well for that side of the ball. And if you can get guys like that, when you already have a quarterback in place, when you have all these young stars kind of coming up, it could be a dangerous squad next year. Now, where they'll start, who knows? I don't know. But this squad could be a dangerous one to watch. But we already know this is LSU, is what they do. It's when are you going to strike, and how can you, when you strike and you get there, will you stay at the top, and will you stay that relevant again?
Yeah. No, 100%. I think, and you've gone through, right? You've gone through an injury. You've recovered from it. You haven't gone through rehab. I've gone through an injury. I've had to rehab through stuff. when you go through that kind of stuff like that Harold Perkins is going through right now, and Witt gets hurt in the bowl game, that rehab itself is kind of motivation, right? So, like, more so for Harold, not having to play for most majority of the season, getting to rehab throughout the year, watching the team, and then watching them go in the bowl game and seeing the guys they brought in, I think that's, I think they're both going to come back with that added sense of urgency with the leadership that they have and they bring to the defense. And you're adding a lot of some extreme talent in the back end of the secondary, which is going to be
hey, look, I got no clue what these boys is like. I got no clue what their relationship was like, but I only got to imagine that when Witt's got to go in and do his rehab, and Harold's in there doing his rehab, that's only them two pushing each other to kind of, one, build an even tighter relationship from whatever it is right now, and two, they start to know each other that much better because they're spending that much more time around each other.
Yeah.
That only bodes well for what they're going to be doing defensively as well.
I love spinning the injury into a positive.
No doubt. Well, listen, Witt's injury was like towards the back half of the game, and it was the last game of the season, and he avoided disaster.
Yeah.
Right? And so that one is like,
honestly,
okay.
It's probably the best case scenario when it comes to that, because if you avoid all of the ligament and all of the tendon and all of that kind of the soft tissue kind of stuff, and it really is just either a break and or a dislocation or something like that, that's a better spot to be, because that's when you can kind of come back and not have to regenerate all that other stuff as well. So that's probably the best, even though it looks more gruesome, that's probably the best spot to be in.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, the first thought that popped into my mind was after I saw him set it, which was
dislocation.
Yeah, it was dislocation. And well, after I saw it, because I didn't know if it was like a total compound fracture.
Right, but when you saw, because they're not setting a compound fracture.
Exactly. That's not how the world works.
Yeah.
But I thought of Patrick Mahomes whenever he dislocated his knee, and he was able to play like pretty much the next game.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this won't be as bad of a rehab as a total compound fracture, ligament tears, all those things. Like the worst case scenario.
Right, and just naturally after a football season, you're going to have some time off.
Right. Well, it's going to happen at a better time.
So, yeah. So, I think he's going to be good. Obviously, Harold, ACL, fourth game of the season. ACL injuries now, you saw Zy Alexander come back and the injury that he had later on in the season, and he's in a cornerback position. John Emery. So, I think, he's been rehabbing. He's a freak athlete. You imagine he's going to recover there and be good. But
on the game, real quick, just because this after the Whit Weeks injury, and obviously you saw like the entire team come out to the cart, that speaks volumes. I saw Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl tweet about it. He goes, "I don't think there will be a question about Whit Weeks and how he his leadership and what he does in a locker room after seeing that. Like you could pretty much mark that off the draft board. Think you're good there."
Oh yeah. Jim Nagy said that.
Yeah. And he's like, those are questions that you get asked. But the other thing, just in terms,
did he go to his birthday party?
Right. Like I think everybody went.
Yeah.
But in terms of the game, the Xavier Thomas return right after, to score a touchdown and respond that quickly, I think was huge just in terms of the actual result, because you could see. I mean, his brother was fucking breaking down. He was crying on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Like during this, LSU was clearly like a little bit shook. They scored on they scored on that play, and then Xavier Thomas immediately returns it for a touchdown. So it kind of settled the game back down in a sense where it's like, all right, let's get back to football. Which I just thought was huge momentum.
That was a huge play for him at that moment, because it kind of got everybody out. So when you go through injuries like that, man, people forget the human side of it in the sense that if you're not on the field, it's hard. You're just watching from the stands. But when you're on the field and something like that happens, and then all of a sudden it's basically we move them off the field as graphic as something like that is, and it's, hey, back to it, right? So for you to kind of make a little jolt and kind of get you back on track right then and right there, it's huge, because it almost kind of puts, as wild as this sounds, it puts something like that kind of in the rear view, and you kind of forget what the hell just happened 5 minutes ago, legit 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's
that's what I'm saying. I think that was huge for LSU just in terms of a mental capacity to be there's 7 points, because I feel like Nussmeier's a very emotional player, and he was probably thinking about it. If you're anybody on LSU, you were thinking about it. You saw the reaction, and then for it just to be boom, snap, touchdown. It's oh, okay. Mm-hmm. That's something to celebrate now, as opposed to still thinking about this 3 and out.
Right.
And still Baylor scored on the next possession a field goal, but it wasn't nearly as dire as LSU giving the ball back up.
And look, Wes Weeks came in, and I think he made 7 tackles.
He played with his hair on fire.
Yeah, right. And so, it just...
And it doesn't count towards eligibility.
Right, and those types of guys, those types of players,
Do you think
like
he
the
would
ones
have
that
burned
play-
his eligibility
Probably.
for his brother? Like if he had
Probably.
to?
They wouldn't have made him if it was.
No, they would. Well, I'm just saying.
They wouldn't have asked him if it was going to burn it. But that type of mentality and those types of players is needed on teams, right? Like that's something that we feel like over the last few years that we haven't really had, right? And so to see that and to kind of build on that and have multiple guys like that, that's a good thing to have moving forward.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Of course.
Oh, yeah. We love those.
Yeah, I'm good at them.
By the way, Oregon scored and scored a 2-point conversion right before half. Last play of half. Did you bet it?
I got 23 and a half. I'm very comfortable.
Oh, you're there.
Yeah, right back in it.
You're right back in it.
What weeks? 18 next year?
What's that?
That's my stupid question.
What weeks? I would
18?
imagine, right? Like, I would imagine he's going to be 18. I mean, there's no one else that really fits that mentality.
More.
I mean, Nuss ain't
I can
taking
see it.
18. You know what I mean? Like,
Whoa. You could do duel?
I mean, they do a duel, right? They've done.
I would
before.
like for Nuss to get out of 13. It feels just bad juju.
He ain't getting 18. 13's his number.
Why does it feel like bad juju?
13's just, it's one of those, I mean, there's a reason it's not in hotels. Like, there's no 13th floor in a lot of hotels in New Orleans.
What does that have? What does that have to do with football?
He says it's a bad luck.
Bad
number.
luck.
That's what he's saying. It's a bad luck number.